On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, what postseason questions do the Thunder have to answer?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Joining us today is the Athletics' Andrew Schlecht at Andrew K. Schlecht on Twitter. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Rylan. It's great to be back on Locked On Thunder.
The rock star, the Screamo band himself, Andrew Schlecht. You can find him on the Athletic, Down to Dunk, the Dream Team podcast, and everywhere in the world. Andrew's going to be there. But Andrew, what are your feelings a couple days out from the Thunder's return to the postseason?
Man, it's so exciting. I mean, it's so exciting to have playoff basketball back in Oklahoma City and to have a team that can legitimately make some noise, out there, that is somehow the number one seed and also an underdog. Like it's like everything that encompasses Oklahoma City is happening right now, where like we feel like we can do anything, but everybody looks at us and says, "What are you talking about?" It's like, you know what? You don't even know what's coming. I am so excited. I'm so excited to be in the building, to see the energy that the players have. We got to see a little bit of that yesterday at practice, but there's nothing quite like playoff basketball, and so I'm pretty excited just to be in the building on Sunday.
Yeah, I thought that practice yesterday, the energy was, you could just feel it. It was different around this team, and Mark called it kind of the first day of school energy from the players, who are obviously very excited about this journey. First off, who are you rooting for on Friday? The Kings or the Pelicans?
I am rooting for the Pelicans. That's what I'm rooting for, because I think if you are wanting a short first round series, that would be the one. Brandon Ingram is hobbled. Zion Williamson is unable to play. This is definitely be the team. I honestly don't think the Thunder should be worried about either one. I think that they could beat the Kings or the Pelicans, but it's unfortunate. You would never wish an injury upon anybody, but when it does happen, I think you would rather play the team that doesn't have the giant superstar that can barrel to the rim whenever he wants. I don't know if you felt the same way, but as that Lakers-Pelicans game is going on, you're sitting there thinking, oh man, the Thunder are going to have to play one of these teams. And Zion looks like a man on a mission, and he still might lose this game. Like, that still might be the guy that you have to face when it's all said and done. And somehow both were eliminated in one game, and one in a very unfortunate way, and then the other fortunate for the Lakers. But it's kind of crazy that during the middle of that third quarter, I'm just thinking, man, this is going to be quite a challenge with whoever they get on the other end of this. And then somehow both of the most scary opponents are both gone now.
Yeah, I think that the bracket shook out really well for the Thunder. You have all the teams that have that extreme size on the other side, with Denver, Minnesota, the Lakers. And then you look at the Pelicans, and I think that one of the reasons why I would also lean New Orleans, even though on Sunday I don't think that we would have had New Orleans as a preferable team. Number one, the injuries. Clearly not having Zion's a big deal, and he looked every bit like a superstar on Tuesday. But the only place we've seen this Thunder team go and have success in the postseason in the play-in last year was in New Orleans. And for whatever reason, Josh Giddey plays awesome in New Orleans. And I think that with this team, there's just something that clicks whenever they play the Pelicans. I mean, the only loss to the Pelicans this year was a 20-point blown lead on national television on November 1st. Yeah. I don't foresee that happening again. I think that this Thunder team, while there would be challenges, Herb Jones, you have to give him credit for defending Shai. Trey Murphy can go off at a moment's notice. But you manage with CJ, you manage with BI, and then the earliest Zion would come back is like game 5, game 6. And by that time, it might not be a series. And I think the most important part for this Thunder team in the first round is a quick series to kind of achieve their maximum ceiling goals. You want a quick series because I don't know about you, Andrew, but I can't foresee Clippers Mavs going anything less than 6 or 7. I think that's going to be a dogfight in probably 7 games, with traveling from the Central Time Zone all the way out to California involved as well. And we know the intensity that those two teams will have playing each other as they've kind of built up this newfangled rivalry of sorts. So I think it's very, very, very key, no matter who they play, the Kings or Pelicans, to have a very short series.
Yeah, I think that's right. And they'll have the opportunity. They will more likely have to be another team that's flying from Central to Pacific Time Zone to play the Kings, but obviously without Zion, this is a really good matchup, and with Ingram, who's not right, and CJ's been good. CJ was really, really bad in that playing game, but CJ's actually been good recently, and so he's really would be the fulcrum of their team, and he couldn't play down the stretch just because they were targeting him over and over again. And so I think the Thunder could put them in the same position. They really can't play Jonas Valanciunas in this matchup. So then it's a lot of Larry Nance, which means that he's obviously a way more versatile player, but he's just not as an impactful player as Jonas is when he can play. So it's just a overall bad matchup when you don't have Zion out there for them. And then I think one of the blessings in disguise is that the Thunder played this Kings team recently and played like this version of the Kings, because they are very different from what they were earlier in the season. And so I think it ended up being a good thing. And the Thunder, I mean, Mark Daigneault kind of figured them out a little bit after halftime, after the Keon Ellis show in the first half, and they were just killing the Thunder. They figured some stuff out defensively and were able to lock everything down the rest of the way and got a really, really pivotal win for them. So I think it's good for the coaching staff and specifically the players to be able to see that team in that form.
Yeah, I think that matchup specifically, I mean, Chet did a really good job on Sabonis in that game. And I like the kind of way that Mark described it whenever, you look at this play-in disadvantage of not knowing your opponent until Friday. But for a young team, maybe that helps you avoid being tight or being too over-prepared and like overthinking the situation, especially on this team, like where they're young and they're already going to be more amped up than usual. I think that they'll be able to handle it, but like they're going to be more amped up than usual. So you don't want to kind of over-prepare for game one. Right now, you can just be fun and loose because you don't even know who you're preparing for, and you really will only have one day to prepare and to think things through. But I think it's going to be the Kings that win this game on Friday. Where are you going to go with that game?
Yeah, I mean, Sacramento's in pole position. Like they should win the game. De'Aaron Fox alone should be enough to beat this team, especially if Brandon Ingram cannot be a guy that can count on, then it's pretty much over. So I would bet on Fox and Sabonis delivering this. Keegan Murray was amazing. So I really think that it's going to be Sacramento Kings.
I'm not sure like the national sex appeal of this matchup, but it would be two raucous crowds that have hungry fan bases, and it'd be a lot of fun to watch these two teams come to life. I think that it would be a good matchup, and it's going to be on TNT for the first 3 games at least of the series. But are there any similarities as you've kind of seen every iteration of the Thunder, and you've been up close and personal with every iteration of the Thunder? Any true similarities between these two teams in terms of how they make you feel and just the anticipation of what could happen with this young core?
Yeah, I think there are similarities. I think just generally being young and kind of growing up in the league together feels similar. But a lot of things don't feel similar. Like the organization itself, whenever KD and Russ and Harden were here, was like growing up. They were growing itself. I mean, they didn't know what quite they were yet. Presti was still figuring out a lot of stuff as they were figuring out the team. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle, not by accident. It was all done purposefully, but it was like, oh my gosh, like we're really good already. Like here we go. And like they hired PJ Carlesimo, right out the gate. Like there are like little things that you like, oh man, like things that the Thunder would never do now, just because they've grown and learned and become better. And so now, like, it feels a little different in that there's like this established culture that just permeates the entire organization that is really, really strong. And not that it wasn't strong then, and I wasn't around for like the very early stuff, but it was just different. And I think that they have just gotten so much better. And like every year, they kind of get a little bit tighter, a little bit more focused, a little bit better, which is like what you want to hear about the team that you're following. And so like there's differences there. And then obviously like style of play and all of that is like very different. But the fact that like they're young players that are growing up together, you know, the city gets to kind of fall in love with the Thunder all over again. You know, they did very much with that Kevin Durant Russ team, and specifically more with Russ as kind of the story unfolded. But yeah, I think Oklahomans are in for a pretty nice long ride with another team, and it's really exciting. It does have similar vibes, but there are some differences too.
Similar vibes, but how crazy is this on a scale of 1 to 10, Andrew? I think it's pretty crazy, but also true of even for as successful as the Thunder were in that first era, and they were one of the most successful franchises in pro sports in that era. I think that this team, style of play wise, and just the way that the pieces fit together, they're more. It's going to be more conducive to winning, in this next run, which is crazy because last era had no problem winning either.
Yeah, I mean, I think theoretically, yes, that's true. We still need to see it. We need to see what these guys look like in the playoffs. Whenever the moments, I mean, there were moments like that Russell Westbrook in the playoffs with Kevin still here, just like took hold of games that were just not going their way. I think game 5 of the Western Conference semis against the Clippers. And that game is over. It's done. One of my good friends literally left the game and like was listening to it on the radio as he's driving home. And a lot of people did that. And Russell Westbrook took a hold of that game and won that game for Oklahoma City as Kevin Durant is sitting down, can't even watch him take the free throws. It's like such a stress moment. But like that game is like, that was like, oh my gosh, like we really have something here. What are those moments for these guys? For Shai, for J-Dub, for Chet, for Giddey, for Dort? Like they're going to have those moments, like they have to go grab those moments. There have been really good teams that have been put together that have not been able to do everything that you would want them to do, or, you can use your basketball imagination and like get to different places with them. This team has the ceiling of a championship level team and a team that can win more than one championship over the course of their time together. But so did Russ and KD. They didn't do it either. I mean, they had nice moments. They did get to one NBA Finals. They didn't do it. I think if you were to forecast like James Harden, Westbrook, Durant, that after that 2012 run, like how many titles is this team going to win in the next like 5 years? You'd be like, oh, at least one, maybe 3? We got a 3-peat coming. Didn't happen. So you got to see it first. This is their first run together, and I'm very interested to see how it looks. But yeah, they do have all the pieces that you'd want. Now they just got to go do it.
Coming up, what's the ceiling of this year's team, and what are those biggest questions that the Thunder have to answer in the postseason? But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Monopoly Go, Andrew. Monopoly Go.
Ooh.
Incredible. And Andrew, you're very competitive. You and Alex play board games all the time. Monopoly Go allows you to get that competitive side out of there on the go, on your app for free. It's the same Monopoly with a little modern twist on it. Of course, you still need to pull off heists and build your city. Most importantly, collect big money. Downloaded by over 150 million people. You want to play it? There's hundreds of Monopoly boards, including crazy locations like the moon that you can build up on Monopoly Go. So get in the game and join your friends, including myself. Download Monopoly Go now for free in the App Store or the Google Play Store. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Andrew, whenever you're looking at this team, the bracket's almost set. I think that we both would lean Thunder in the first round, no matter who it is, Kings or Pelicans. So how far can this Thunder team get?
I mean, with the way that things have broken, I mean, first of all, anything is possible. So there's also downsides to that, in that the Kings could get hot for 4 games, and like that could be it. The ceiling, though, I think this team can go to the NBA Finals. I think is what the ceiling is. Like, I really do think that they have a shot to do that. Now, it's a pretty low chance for them to be able to get there. But they definitely have they're going to have a chance. You get to the conference finals. This team is better than that Lakers team last year. Now, the Nuggets know how to execute in the playoffs. They've been through it. They've had multiple runs together. They've had multiple failures together, and they've had the ultimate success together. So the Nuggets are not quite as good as they were last year, just because of the role players coming off the bench. It may not matter still. I mean, they had a pretty large margin for themselves to win that championship last year, so it's not like they won it by the skin of their teeth. But this Thunder team, if they can put it together, could look like they did in 2012, where they beat a Spurs team that, one, everybody thought the Thunder were dead after 2 games, but no one thought the Thunder were going to beat the Spurs. Nobody thought they were, and they did. And I think that there's potential for that to happen this year already for the Thunder. Part of that is that their leader and best player is already 25 years old. And so, like, he's had some experiences. He's had some playoff experiences himself. But yeah, that's the ceiling. I would say that's like a 2% chance of happening.
What do you think is the most likely case scenario for this team?
I think the most likely scenario is that they get to round 2 and lose in round 2.
Do you have a lean on that Mavericks Clippers series?
Whew. I mean, you got to give me the injury report.
That's fair enough.
But I think I lean Mavs, and I think the Thunder could beat the Mavs in a series. But you have Luka and Kyrie, both playoff experience, both crazy scorers. Yeah, I think that would be a tough series, and I think the most likely scenario is that the Thunder lose to the Mavericks in round 2. And I would call that. I mean, that series is probably a coin toss, I would say, at this point. But yeah, I think that's probably where I land.
So whenever you look at this team, I think that the inexperience is going to be a big deal. Shai playing in Oracle in the postseason, I think, is a big deal. That he's seen kind of one of the best environments that there is, but they're still going to have to navigate this postseason for the first time, really top to bottom. Like, first time that Mark's been in the playoffs, first time that a lot of these guys have played. I mean, Lou Dort played 7 playoff games, but they're all in the bubble. So it's going to take a little bit. Gordon Hayward, I think, could be someone who provides some veteran leadership of just how to handle the ups and downs of a series, especially with 2 days off between most of these games in the first round. You lose one game and you have 2 days to think about it. And you have 2 days to overreact to it, good or bad. I think that it's good to have someone like Gordon Hayward in there who's seen how quickly things change, because it feels like it's going to go quick. It feels like it's going to be a race to 4 wins, but this takes a long time. And there's going to be so many twists and turns in the playoffs. But Andrew, what's the biggest question the Thunder have to answer this postseason run, regardless of how far they get? But the question that you have for this team?
I mean, I honestly don't know that there's any like crazy big questions that need to be answered in the postseason, because like this is the beginning of something really big for them. I do think that still the Josh Giddey thing is going to loom over them a little bit, in that he is extension eligible this summer, and that's really the only reason why. Is like, what are they going to do with Josh? I think that, to me, like, that's one of the biggest questions that needs to be answered from here. And maybe he accepts a 4-year $80 million, extension, which would be very team friendly. And then you're like good to go. You can afford to do that. But if he wants to hold out, if he wants more than that, perhaps they would give him 4 for 100. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that contract will look like. But to me, like that's probably the biggest one. It's like how does the fit look? What does it look like in the playoffs? What are teams doing to defend him in the playoffs? The Kings did not defend Josh with Sabonis in Oklahoma City last Tuesday. So, I mean, things are obviously looking a lot better for Josh, but I still think there's a lot of questions about him overall because, like, you don't have questions about Shai, J-Dub, Chet, Lou, Joe, Kenrich, Wiggins, all those guys. Like, you don't have questions about those guys, Case and Wallace. But there's still some questions about, like, how do you fit this 6'8" point guard, sideline out of bound passer, like this, like he's very unique. And I don't think that they are going to, I think they're going to really take their time to make this decision. And you could take him to restricted free agency. Presti hasn't done that traditionally, but you could still do that. But if you're the Thunder, I think as you're watching this, you're thinking, okay, what's a reasonable extension for him? And how do we get him to sign it? Like, how do we lock this core up together? Because I do think as much as it's been a roller coaster for Giddey, I think that he's still like very much a part of like this core and still very much a part of this team.
Yeah, I think that the questions are going to be ones that get monitored and not really answered in their first playoff run, because I know that they're the 1 seed, but this is still a season in which you're just trying to gather like a baseline of what this team is. Even though they were great in the regular season, you still have to see like who's going to be a guy that just rises their play in the playoffs, who's going to be someone who plays differently, just either good or bad in the playoffs, because every year we see players who step up. One of those players has been guys like Lou Dort and Josh Giddey, who have big moments in the biggest games on the biggest stages. Does that trend continue? I think that along with Josh Giddey, to couple with that, one of my questions is who's going to be that playoff riser that we're sitting here really impressed with their postseason run.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. There are always players that rise to the occasion. There's some that shrink from it, and I mean that's why you play the games. That's why the playoffs are so much fun. Is like, does J-Dub become like this 27-point scorer in the playoffs, or does he become a 17-point scorer in the playoffs? I think both are very possible. Lou Dort, watch out for Lou Dort. This dude loves the playoffs. This dude loves big moments. And, we've seen him score 30 in the playoffs, before in his first year, when it was like, who is this guy? What do we do with him? Let's let him shoot as many threes as possible. He averaged 8 threes a game against the Houston Rockets in that series. I think if he averages 8 threes in the playoffs this year, it's not necessarily the best thing for the team, but that Lou will not be afraid.
He will not be afraid. I think that the biggest thing for Lou is that this is the best team around him to kind of complement him and make him a more efficient player, as we've seen throughout the regular season. But I have 2 big questions to monitor coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. MLB's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in the app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Make sure you go there right now to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet to be an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Andrew, right now, a series that matters a lot for the Thunder. The Mavericks are 1.5-point favorites on the road in LA. I'm going to lean the Mavericks in game 1.
That's a good lean, man. I think this is all about Kawhi. Like, what's up with Kawhi? Is he available? Does he care? What's going on with Kawhi? That's what I want to know. So check out FanDuel, America's #1 sports book.
We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day, here with Andrew Schlecht, the athletic, down to dunk, OKC dream team everywhere in the world. Andrew Schlecht's there. Andrew, my biggest question is how unconventional will the Thunder continue to be? I have a lot of faith in Mark. I think that he's the best coach that the Thunder have really seen in terms of just his ability to keep the team together just on a personable level, but also as a tactician. I think he's really good. I think that that's a very high praise, considering the Thunder are the only franchise in NBA history to hire 3 straight Coach of the Years. So he's got some good company, but he's been very unconventional to this point. I feel confident he'll continue to do so, and like he'll continue to be himself. But we do see at times, like when it's easy to be unconventional for 82, then you get to the playoffs, a bigger stage, a bigger moment where everybody's watching you and over criticizing every little detail. Oftentimes these kind of creative coaches might resort back to conventional wisdom. I don't think that will happen, but things like the rotation, like how does Mark handle his rotation in the postseason, is something that we have to see. How does he blend going from playing 12, 13 guys sometimes to, I don't think he's going to play a rigid 8-man rotation at all. But what's the balance there? What's the blend in how you utilize your roster?
Yeah, it's a great question. And my instinct on this is that they will stay unconventional and that they will continue to push that way. And it may mean still playing 10 guys, and it may still be trying different things within the game. Now, I don't think there's obviously not going to be developmental minutes that are going to exist for any of these guys. But I do think like you stay unconventional, but also like you play Shai more and you play J-Dub more. I mean, Shai averaged 34 minutes per game. That's going up. J-Dub 31 minutes. That's going up. Chet only 29 minutes per game. That's going up. Dort 28 minutes. Maybe once we get to Dort, things kind of level off a little bit. But you play your best 3 players, more minutes. That's helpful. And then it's going to be about mixing and matching and like just pushing the right button. Like, is this a Josh Giddey series? Is this a Josh Giddey game? Casey Wallace has been amazing. He played all 82 games. He played a significant role for this team, 20 minutes per game. Like that's more than Isaiah Joe. That's more than Aaron Wiggins. That's more than Kenrich Williams. I mean, I think it kind of gets forgotten a little bit how big of a role he played throughout the entire season. Like, what does he look like in the playoffs? Is he ready for the moment? Is he still shooting 41% from 3? Those there's a lot of questions to be asked there, but I think they'll stay unconventional. I think Mark's got some things in his back pocket that he has not used against teams that we will see him use in the playoffs. And I'm really excited to see that. I think if they play the Kings, I think that we'll see some Jay Will Chet minutes and maybe a lot of that look. But yeah, I think that they will stick to their guns. I think I think the look of disappointment on Sam Presti's face to Mark, if he went conventional, would just be too much for him to bear. So
it would.
I think he'll stay unconventional.
I do too. I think that it'll be unconventional. I think that it'll just be like a blend of, naturally you're going to play those 3 guys more that you mentioned, Shai, J-Dub, Chet. That'll naturally change how you operate. But I think that you could go win 4 games in the first round and have 4 different closing lineups. I think that you've seen that Mark, even in the regular season, is so obsessed with playing offense, defense in the last 20 seconds or so of a quarter, which I think is great to go steal you a couple possessions. But that will lend itself to maybe technically 10 guys play, because there's 2 quarters where you want to put out an offense defense lineup and you have Lindy and Muscala out there for like 20 seconds apiece, which technically counts as playing your guys. And then I think that he's not going to be afraid, which is the biggest advantage to the Thunder. Oftentimes these coaches, like, they go in with this preconceived notion of, these are my 8 guys I'm going to play, hell or high water, this is what we're going to do, where Mark is not going to be afraid to adapt to a single game. And this is why you've trained these guys to go from a string of DNPs to heavy rotation minutes to playing for the first 2 minutes, realizing, hey, it's not your night, getting out and getting someone else in. I think that all that stuff will continue to happen. Maybe the actual minutes per game will fluctuate, which of course it will, But in terms of how they operate and being unconventional of being quick to adjust to the other team, I think will continue and will be a big reason why the Thunder have success this postseason.
I think it's a good take. I'm very excited to see it. I can't.
Getting the Schlecht stamp is always what you look for in life. Like if my goal in life and everything I do is to get the Schlecht stamp of approval. Andrew,
you got to get higher standards here, Rylan.
You've set the bar really high, Andrew. Like you've set the bar as high as it goes. But Andrew, do you have any other questions that you're monitoring this postseason?
I just want to see what Shai looks like. Honestly, like Shai needs to be like 33, 35 points per game in the playoffs, and needs to be dominant. I just want to see it. I want to see if he's got that in him in the postseason. I don't like doubt that he does. I just want to see it, because that's what gets you to like the next level, and that's what gets this team to where they want to go. Is that your superstar delivers it for you. We saw Kevin Durant do it. We saw Russell Westbrook do it. You see, like when the lights are bright, and God bless Jimmy Butler. I hope that he feels, better soon. It doesn't look good for him, but you watch Jimmy last year. The Heat make it to the NBA Finals because of Jimmy Butler, because of what he was able to execute and became this like heliocentric player. I mean, does Shai have that in him as a playoff guy? Like that's what I want to see. I think it's a big question for him and for the team. It's like what does that look like? Can he be the man? What do we think about Shai after this playoff run? Because he could be the reason that they get all the way to the NBA Finals this year. Like that could happen. He has that kind of ceiling. Like, do we get to see that? What does it look like? To me, that's going to be one of the biggest things. That's going to be like the thing. Like, do the Thunder make it to the conference finals? Do they make it even past round one? It's going to be a lot on Shai's shoulders.
And I think the most encouraging part for Thunder fans is that no matter how this looks in the postseason, his first time ever as being the number one option on a playoff team, if there's any player in the NBA that you trust to reflect on what just happened that season and improve, even if no matter how far they get to the NBA Finals and lose or win even, he will be the player that you would bank on having the work ethic necessary to take his game to the next level the next time he's in that situation. So no matter how it goes, good or bad, I think it'll go good, but no matter how it goes, I trust Shai to have that work ethic. Andrew, we are looking at this test for the Thunder, and I think the biggest thing for the Thunder, the biggest slam dunk question is going to be the playoff crowd. Can it match what it used to be? I think it will. I think it can, but it's clearly a question that will need to be answered. We've lost Andrew Schlecht. His internet is gone. Andrew, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for watching. He's back. Andrew's back. Andrew,
I don't know.
The biggest slam dunk question. We just kept it rolling. I knew I had faith in you. You'd come back.
Wow.
The biggest slam dunk question. Will this playoff crowd match what it did the first go around? I think it's a question, but one that you might be able to just check off pretty easily.
I don't think they'll do it.
Really? You're anti-crowd. Andrew Schlecht, voice of the Thunder.
Prove me wrong, Oklahoma City. Prove me wrong. Be loud. Stand up. Know the moments. Show me. People have been like, oh, the crowd's back. Listen, the crowd this season has not been what it was in the first iteration of the Thunder. Has not. Flat out. Has not been that. Prove me wrong. I don't think it'll be as good.
I think that it's going to be tough to be as good in a sense of to simulate what that first run was. It's a lot like your first time, Andrew. It's tough to get that magic back. It's tough to get that magic back. As time wears on.
First time doing what?
anything in life, Andrew. You know, the first pod you ever did was exhilarating.
Oh man,
it might have been quick. You might have not been able to record very long, but as you get going, as you get into it, you're able to have some success down the road and adjust. I think that this playoff crowd might be a shy disappointment on game one. Maybe they need some help to get up for game two, but eventually, as things progress, as these teams rally, as these fans rally on this team, they'll be able to handle it. My biggest thing, Andrew, that I'm worried about with the crowd is how many people have gotten to watch this team because of the Bally Sports just chaotic mess.
It's a good question. Not as many as there should be. That's for sure.
So maybe it takes a little bit of time to rally around this Thunder squad, even though they've done everything right in the process. We'll see. Is Andrew going to be wrong for the first time in his career? Are you guys going to show out and actually produce in game one?
Prove me wrong.
Prove Andrew wrong. Andrew, thanks for joining us. Check out the Underdunk. Check out Dream Team. Check out The Athletic. Check out Andrew Schlecht on Twitter at Andrew K. Schlecht. Check out Andrew's great hair on YouTube. And until next time, be good and be good to one.